Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tuesday Night Talk on Bigfoot and more. Good to see everybody. Got a guest I'm real excited about tonight. Just been at a couple of speaking engagements that she was at as well this month. It's been a really busy October, and we're going to talk about that. But as always, I want to start off by thanking our moderators. Kashuga Zentite for doing such a great job for us here. And remember, if you want to read either of my books, I've got links to those in the description. One of them is called Kiamichi Bigfoot, Investigating the Oklahoma Sasquatch. The other is a novel called The Champay. And excuse me just a minute, because some. Okay, I'm back. I left my other computer on, and it was bleeding into this. But anyway, like I said, it's been a very busy October. I started off the month speaking at the Honub Bigfoot conference, and though it's spelled Hanobia, it's pronounced Honebi, and also spoke at the Jefferson Bigfoot conference down in Texas. And this young lady I'm about to have on here, I met her at the first one. And she also spoke at the second one I was at. And her name is Shelly Covington Montana. I'm going to read her bio starting off. And by the way, questions are welcome. If you've got questions for me, please put those questions in caps, and I'll do my best to answer every one of them. But here's Shelly. I wrote this down. She's a native of Texas, known as wilderness and wildlife enthusiast, who has a passion for conservation and preservation. She is a level 2 certified wildlife tracker. Her search for the truth regarding the Bigfoot mystery was fueled by her husband's unexplained encounter in the winter of 1982 in the forest of East Texas. And I'd love to hear about that. Shelly is a founder of the Citizen Science Sasquatch Inquiry Movement. She created the Sasquatch Alba Vernix DNA and Latent print kit. She promotes constantly pushing oneself to learn in the field of wildlife behavior and conservation. And it can only increase our ability to bring forth solid evidence by separating factual research from emotional/biased research. Facts are truth, and I'm hopeful with proper wildlife DNA collection and analysis, it could be a benefit and a standard in the search of the enigma we call Bigfoot. With that, I'm going to bring Shelly on screen with us.
Hi.
Hello, Shelly. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, David?
Good. I tell you, we had to work some bugs out to get you on here tonight. And I didn't mention it when I was talking to you earlier, but I had a bug with StreamYard because StreamYard, the virtual backgrounds weren't working, and the whole background was just flickering in and out. And I had to get on their chat and have them tell me how to fix that. So it's like there were some bugs all the way around this evening, but we got it figured out. So anyway, seems like we've seen each other a couple of times this month.
So
Technology. Hey, technology is always great, except when it's not. So, but yeah, like I say, I met you first time at the Honebi conference, and we both spoke there, and that was very interesting. And then at Jefferson, got to meet your husband down in Jefferson, and he was a really nice fella. Can I say what he said to me when I asked if you were Shelly's husband?
Sure.
I said, "Are you Shelly's husband?" He said, "Well, it depends. What's she done?"
so anyway, a little trouble sometimes, but
but anyway, I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about your projects you've done, your adventures you've been on. I mean, shared some, like going up into the mountains in the Pacific Northwest all by yourself for weeks at a time, and all of that. And that's like, I'm like, my gosh, she's like a female Indiana Jones here or something. So
I don't know about that, but I try. I feel like putting forth the time and effort, which I have to say that the only reason I can do that is because I have a wonderful family that supports what I do. And it all stems back from really focusing on facts. You know, if I wanted to gallivant around the country, playing Bigfoot and looking for a mythical, magical monster, I don't think they'd be real happy about it. But yes, sir, I think I have been going to the Pacific Northwest every summer. It started out with like a month, at a time, and now it's gone down to 4 months, solid 4 months. I'm there from May to September, sometimes October. I went to Alaska this year. It was primarily for a gold dredging trip, but I also was really interested in anything Sasquatch that I could find, which I didn't, but that's okay. But did and was able to find a lot of wildlife tracks and scat that we don't see here in the States, or I don't anyway, in the regions I visit. So, wolf and caribou and moose, and no, I didn't see any grizzly, saw a lot of black bear. Got to, cast tracks, which, I'm really just to get it in. And I want to just really push this home throughout this whole talk is everything we're doing is Sasquatch related research, if you want to call it. I don't even like to call what I do research. I don't know that I've earned that title, but practice, 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 practice. Because just like technical difficulties on this computer with doing these podcasts, even though I've done many of them, when it comes to the live shows, I don't practice that. So, it's you're rushing around trying to figure out what you're doing wrong. Once we start working with thermal cameras like I do, and DNA kit collection, and training our mind's eye to see what we need to find, and you're practicing, it becomes muscle memory and second nature. So, but yeah, I go out for many months, and I miss my husband and my family very much, but it's worth it, I think.
Yeah, well, no, you're very, very fortunate that your husband really supports you in this.
Yes, sir.
That's a key thing. You met my wife on my trip down to Jefferson. She's a total skeptic. I told her the other day. I said, "You're a Dana Scully to my Fox Mulder." On the and she had no idea what I was talking about. I'm like, okay, that's the X-Files. Mulder's a believer in the paranormal and such as that, and Scully's the total skeptic. But she, I wouldn't say she goes so far as to actively support it, but she doesn't, discourage me from looking into it. I'd like to be able to talk her into going on a camp trip with me sometime, and I think I'm getting close. But I was reading on your biography here. You said your interest in this started by an experience your husband had in Texas. Is that something you would?
Sure, I can talk about that, because it really was important in the sense of where I'm at today. I'm from a law enforcement family. My father's retired state narcotics lieutenant with Texas Ranger honors, and I'm the oldest sibling, and my dad raised only girls, so he treated us like he would have, I guess, boys, and what we should be doing, and especially as women, taking care of ourselves and being very aware of our surroundings, those kind of things. But as a young child, he was always showing me things about the dangers of the world, including drugs and what they look like and all these things. So I've learned from a very young age, basically that truth is key here. No matter what you're doing, integrity is all we have, right? I mean, and that is very real to me in the world of Sasquatch. So my husband, I've known Don since I was 13 years old, and I'm pushing 60 right now. So I just had a birthday. I'm 59 years old. So I've known him almost all my life. Later in life, well, I say later in life, in my early 20s, we started dating and got married and had a family. And the one thing I knew that he had always done is since about 83 ish, he started telling me this story about him going to the Angelina National Forest to go hunting with a friend of his who they'd done this often. And apparently, this time his buddy wasn't going to be there till the next day. So Don went alone. And this was, back then, back in the 80s. I mean, you could go off road, nobody bothered you about it, with your four-wheel drives and such. And he said it was, I think, about a mile off of the forestry road through this path of trees him and his buddy had kind of created. And he said this one night he's there. He's all he's got really is his hunting gear and a sleeping bag underneath the tailgate of the truck. And he had a campfire. And he said at some point this something started circling the camp and breaking very large limbs and such in the tree line. He couldn't see it, but he could hear it. And he just couldn't figure out what the heck this was, because he thinks through his mind, he's thinking, is that a cow? I mean, why would a cow be out here and such? But he said he didn't think a whole lot of it until it came the second time. And that's when he knew, this thing's circling his camp. Obviously, it's staying just out of, the ambient light of the campfire and in the tree line, but it's intimidating him. He felt, as he likes to put it, he was invited to leave the woods. And I tease him. I think it's not funny, but it kind of is the way he puts it. And he said he just jumped up, grabbed his sleeping bag, his firearms, threw them in the truck, ran over the fire, and got the heck out of there and set up at the nearest gas station in town and slept there all night until his buddy got there next day. And then they go back, and he said there's broken limbs everywhere in that tree line, and really big ones. He said, nice, big. And from that day forward, well, I guess when we were, we had just gotten married, or maybe even when we were dating, he would tell me this story, but he wouldn't talk about what it was. He would say, I don't know. What do you think? And so for about 25 years, I would say, we went through that story. And I would say, well, could it have been this? Could have been a horse? Could have been. And he was like, no, I don't think so. Why would it come back a second time? And finally, one day I said, are you talking about Bigfoot? And he said, yeah, I just didn't want you to think I was crazy. And so when he said that to me, I knew he wasn't crazy, because I've known him all my life. He's a man of integrity. He doesn't lie, doesn't need to. Everybody loves my husband, and he's a great guy. And I thought, oh my Lord, I believed that Sasquatch was in Washington State, but in Texas. And that just led me down this, I don't know, couple of years of in-depth, internet searching from the time I get up in the morning till the time I go to bed. And I made him take me back to where all this happened. And within, I think, 2 years, I was talking to people online, and I think that was around 2010-ish when I started all that. And by 2014, I was in the Pacific Northwest, and here we are today.
Okay. So, can you see, when I put a question up there, can you see it on your screen?
I'm on my phone. I missed it. Where was this? Oh, it was in the Angelina National Forest, right there at the Louisiana-Texas border with, I think it's Toledo and Lake, that area.
And when you were, here's another comment for you. I think Zach meant for you to see it.
No way, you're almost 60. Yes way.
Well, that was me, because when you were giving your speech there at Honubby, you was talking about you and your husband being married 37 years, and
Yeah,
I told you, I said you're older than I thought you were. you know,
yeah.
but yeah, I
Well,
mean, for those that don't know, all the speakers at Honubby, save for Troy that kind of organized it, they put us all in uh, I want to say cabin, but it's really a big house, and we all had
yeah.
our own like wing of the house. And it was me, um, gentleman named Pete Buffalo Head. He was one of the speakers there, and his wife, and Shelly and Henry.
Yeah,
I don't know Henry's last name, but Shelly's friend Henry was there. So we all got to visit and there, after the speaking and all that too. So that's how we kind of got to know each other a little bit.
hmm
So anyway, I'm scanning through here, see if I missed anybody's questions relevant. But so you actively, after your husband's, another thing, you said, why would a horse or whatever come back? To me, the big question would be, why would it avoid the light?
I mean, who knows?
Because
I don't know.
I've camped in areas where there's cow stuff, and if they're, they kind of lumber around. If you got something they're interested in, they just kind of there. Horses,
Sure.
especially, are just insanely curious and just walk in. But when you said it um, invited him to leave, I used that here back it was in March of 2003. A friend of mine named Brian Baker and I were down in the Kiamichi Mountains, and like, 2 o'clock in the morning, something threw a very large rock, like about 25, 30-pound rock, against a tree outside of our camp. And, somebody said, well, that's aggression. I said, no, aggression would have been throwing it right on top of us. My impression was it was letting us know it was there, and it would rather us not be. So,
Well, I've had a rock throwing event. I've had two, and I guess they're encounters to me.
yeah.
I'm not asking anybody to believe me. But uh, in 2015, July 31st, August 1st, because it was so late, I had these massive wood knot. I think I let you listen to them. I had a visual. I had a sighting. It was a super moon, so it was at night, but I saw him 3 times. And then 6 days later, in the exact same spot, I had a rock throwing event for 30 minutes, which I have all that audio. I have it all recorded. And the thing about the rock throwing event, and it wasn't just rocks, it was big chunks of wood um, out of a fire pit. And the thing about that was it hit this tree that was no more than 5 feet, 6 feet from the head of my tent for 30 minutes over and over. And I was so mortified because that
And
was 6 days later.
you were
And
alone?
I was not alone. But
Okay.
no one in the other two gentlemen, they were in their tents, and I was in between them, and they never heard a thing. So, but we got it on audio, and they were shocked at how loud it was. But the point I wanted to make was they were, whatever it was throwing those things, and I went through a series of like, could that be elk? Could that be, squirrels dropping pine cones and all of that. The thing was, I just know in my heart, and it's just from what I had experienced from the stuff the 6 days before, they did not want me to leave. They wanted me and the other guys to get out of our tents so they could see how many of us there were.
Mm.
That's what I felt like. Like keeping an assessment of how many of you are here because we were in an old hunting camp. So, and 6 days earlier, they came into our camp pretty much. When that thing walked out, no more sounds, no more tree knocks, no more nothing. And it was, in, you know, I felt like they just want to know how many are around and just kind of keep an eye on you so that they don't get caught. That's kind of how I felt. I don't know, but that's how I felt. If they wanted me to be gone, they would have hit my tent.
Yeah, the rock throwing, and I haven't spoken to you since I don't think Jefferson.
Yeah.
But we had a rock throwing event. Will has the YouTube channel Will Star Mysteries. I saw him in chat earlier. He and I went down into the Kiamichi Mountains, and I got the audio of it. I caught it. Something threw a rock into the edge of our camp that evening, and I was like, I remember, and you can hear it. I'm saying, I hope to God my camera picked that up, and you can hear it just like thump and bounce.
Right.
And yeah, I was giddy like a little girl talking about us. And man, that because we had heard loud vocalizations earlier in the night and stuff like that, and that just takes it to a whole nother level, you know. Because what else rocks? You know, it's got to be a person or it's got to be a Sasquatch,
Right.
You know.
Well,
But
the thing too about rock throwing, this is what I always, like I go, so in tracking and all those things, you go through the motions, like when you're trying to decipher certain types of tracks, you put yourself in that place. And the movement of the animal, the girth of the animal, all those things are important. And what I keep hearing through all the reports I've taken about rock throwing is a rock will land in camp, and what does everybody do? They look and they run over to that spot. Did you see that? Do you see this? It puts you in a better place, I think, for them to visually get a better view of you. Because, I mean, it's like we're their puppets at that point. Like, they can move us all around just by throwing things or whatever. But I don't think there's anything aggressive about it. I just think they're contemplating what we are, who we are, how many of us there are, and just trying to avoid getting caught while they're still, I guess, kind of, treating us like they're little puppets for whatever reason. We're the circus that came into town, I guess, maybe.
well, and you heard me say it in my talk there at Honaby was if Sasquatches are out to get us, they're not very good at it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
Right.
until I mean, if I don't show back up from a solo camp sometime and there's signs of that, well, maybe I was wrong. But so far, I haven't seen any evidence to lead me in a different direction. You were talking about you had a visual as well. Was it on the same trip or was that a
It was
different?
this was the visual, and all the tree knocks I got were on the 31st, July 31st, August 1st. And we found a footprint the next morning. And then the rock throwing was the exact same spot 6 days later. And I saw him 3 times go through the trees. And I drew a picture of it. There was another gentleman with me, and I have all of this on audio. And there was another gentleman sitting with me. We were in the dark with no campfires, the bird band, no headlamps, nothing, no lights at all. But the moon was so bright, everything was gray. You know how you can adjust on those super
Oh yeah.
moons, and it was the second full moon of the month, so it was a very odd kind of, to me, I think it was just a very odd time of, the year, the month, I don't know if when the last full moon or two full moons in 1 month had been, but it'd been a while. I'm pretty sure, but for 2 full days, it was just tree knocks started from the top of this ridge every night, and I thought, surely not. This is tree knocks, but they worked their way all the way to our camp, and it would take from dusk till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And the second night, I know I was, by this point, there's 2 of them at least, maybe 3, but one's sitting in a meadow down behind us, and he's not moving. He's just knocking, but they're knocking back and forth. The one that's moving towards us, very loud, humongous, just pow, like a gunshots almost. At first, that's what I thought they were, and then I realized they weren't. But I could literally visualize, because I tell people I was watching noise at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, there's this tree. I'm watching towards where I think he's at. And all of a sudden he hits a tree or whatever, I don't know if it's rock on wood or wood on wood. Sounds like wood on wood to me, but there's all kinds of speculation out there. But the trees just out of the birds fly out of this tree. And I know for a fact, because I've done a lot of experiments with thermal imaging and birds, that you can't get birds to move hardly at all at night unless you reverberate the tree. You're not going to make all this noise. You've got to hit that tree to get them to move. The tree's got to move to get the birds to move in the night. And I knew right then that's where he was. And that kind of tripped me out, but I'm still kind of not believing it. And then he works his way through the tree line right in front of us. And I say in front of us, I mean, he's from here to, and I guess it was, I need to go back and look at my notes, but it's a good 100 feet, I guess. And all of a sudden I hear a completely different noise, and I have this on audio, but it was like a pop, but real loud at the end of this tree line. And all of a sudden he comes walking out and just glides right out down towards the meadow where the other one was, and then nothing else until 6 days later, or 5 days later, I guess it was, on the 6th day, was when all the rock filling happened in the middle, or it happened at dusk. We had got there really late, and I woke up to it, and that by that time, now I'm freaked out because I can't see anything. I don't know what it is, and I don't know how close it is, but it's loud. Like, I could feel the rocks when stuff hit the tree, and I could feel it through my sleeping pad just bouncing, I could feel it bouncing on the ground, and that terrified me. You can hear me in the audio going, because I'm trying to whisper out to see if the other guys are hearing it, and they don't answer me, so I know they don't hear it. So that lasted for 30 minutes.
Wow.
And nothing major since then, and I've been back to that spot for months at a time. I try so hard to put myself in the same place and see if it can ever, if we could ever generate something close to it. And I have some theories about that too. And, I mean, we could talk for hours about what I've done to try to produce or put myself in the right place at the right time, and for long periods of time.
I think the biggest part of it is just being in the right place at the right time. And that's one thing when I interviewed Ron Moorhead a few weeks ago, he said, "You're not going to find them; they're going to find you."
True.
And I think that's but a lot of what you're talking about, and down at Jefferson, we didn't get much of a chance to visit, but several of the things you're talking about there, me and Will witnessed very similar things down in the Kiamichi. We went down there the weekend between Jefferson and Honubby, which is, he flew all the way down from Ohio. I got to get him on here in the next couple of weeks so we can talk about all that. But anyway, so you started.
You have a question on here?
That's what I'm kind of going through here. I know we got two people throwing rocks at each other in the chat. That's Joe from Western New York, Bigfoot, and Donald Fuller. They've been talking. They've been testing their rock throwing abilities at each other. So yeah, we got about 54 in chat, Shelly. So that's a pretty good turnout. We got some friends of mine. It's on there, John Hodges, and some people. And there's a Squatching Cowboy Joe, Gary Spike Sr., Harry Man Hoaxes and Hoodwinks, Johnny Half, Mopar Bill, Donald Fuller, Gene Hudson, Sandra Piper, not going to say name everybody. Sandra W., Squatching Mountain Mama. I don't know that I've seen you in here before, but welcome. If anybody has any questions, and go, like I say, just put them up there in caps, and I'll do my best to answer those. Let me see here.
Well, I'm very humbled that everyone's here. I'm just here to I guess share, just
There's
citizen
Bigfoot
science
Okanagan.
and how cool it is.
Well, yeah, and the thing is and I want to get into this too, because we've got some people on here that now that I see that are very interested in the scientific aspect of it. Bigfoot Okinawan from up there in British Columbia and Western New York, Joe. They're very, not saying anybody else isn't, but I know these people, these gentlemen personally, and I know they really are. There's my friend Mark from Livewire. I did a very in-depth investigation of Sasquatch incidents on his property when he lived in Oklahoma. But anyway, it says here you're founder of the Citizen Science Sasquatch Inquiry Movement and created the Sasquatch Alba Vernix DNA and Latent Print Kit. I've, I've heard you tell about it, but I know people here would love to hear about it too.
Okay, sure. Well, so actually, the DNA kits started, just wildlife DNA kits started when I started going out to, because I just kept seeing, online where people are hitting trees and doing calls. And then on the other end, they're getting frustrated because science isn't recognizing anything that we're doing. Like, what are you bringing to the table? Oh, well, I got these calls, or I've got, it just isn't collected data that's truly documented and in a controlled way, I guess. And what I also realized is 90% of the people that are doing anything in the field are just average folks like me, myself. And being once again from a law enforcement family and not looking like, because my family at first was like, what the heck are you talking about? And I'm like, so I've got to make sure everything I do is very deliberate and very, um, fact motivated, in the sense of giving Sasquatch the recognition it deserves. On top of, I just am fascinated by the whole idea. And, I'm seeing people online, picking up hair and saying I got some Sasquatch hair, and then other people are saying it's contaminated, and all this rigmarole. And so I thought, well, if there just really isn't any tools for people like myself. And so that led me down the road of thinking, well, what would I do? Oh, well, my dad's in law enforcement, and I would love forensic files. What about a DNA kit? So I started looking into wildlife DNA kits, and those things are super expensive. And so I thought, well, I can create my own. All I got to do is, do some research, contact the medical field and the forensic field. And so I start coming up with these kits. And then these kits became bigger and bigger as time went on, or they got better and better. And I would hand them out to people as a thank you gift when they invite me to their area. And that taught me a lot. It taught me who people really were. Were they interested in their encounters, or were they interested in Sasquatch? Because if they were interested in Sasquatch, they'd pick up a kit and go, oh, wow, I like this. Tell me about it. How do I use it? Or if they weren't interested in Sasquatch with their encounters, they would look at it and go, thanks, and chunk it to the side. So that to me was really interesting. And then I became friends with people like Dr. Meldrum, and started getting contacted by some cool organizations that would have asked me if I could provide them with some kits, or show them how to use the kits. And it just kind of grew from there. I'm just kind of squishing all this in real fast, but we're we're here now at 2021, last year. And I get a phone call because I'm going to speak at the Texas conference, and uh, uh, Cliff Baratman's speaking as well, and I'm good friends with him, and or good enough friends, I'll say. And I get a phone call from him, and he says, Shelly, you need to read all your DNA stuff. We've got a face print, and they're going to bring the glass and everything with the face print on it from this location to the conference, and we're going to pull the DNA. And I'm like, fantastic. My job. This is all I got to do. All I cared about was getting it done right. And what I tell people all the time, and I do this myself, practice, practice, practice. Well, I get there, and through a little, we all kind of practiced, and Cliff finally said, "Nah, I'm gonna, we'll pull the DNA together, and then you're gonna pull the prints," and that's what we did. And so after that, it was really interesting. It was successful. You know, the DNA is still not funded to be tested, but if you were, you know, if we were to have a sighting of someone seeing the face print hit that glass or the handprint, I think the more evidence you compile together, like DNA, some hair, whatever you can pull together with video, pictures, sightings, people are going to be more apt to fund it for you, because it's not cheap. We know that it's at least $5,000. So anyway, after that, I get contacted by Doug Hychek, the guy that does the Monster Quest show.
Mm-hmm.
Super brilliant man, very smart, and he tells me he had been looking into the compounds of the sebum from human primates to all other primates and the differences. And what he found out is all other primates have one more compound than humans in the sebum. And so that was super interesting. And we were talking about this consistency of this face print. It was real thick and oily and waxy. And he was like, yeah, it's like this white stuff. We can't call it white stuff. So he asked me if I would name it. So I did a little research and came up with Alba Vernix, meaning Alba for white, and waxy protective substance is kind of what I came up with. Vernix is the protective coating on babies when they're born. I know that's not really the same thing, but it's close enough for right now, and it gives everybody a chance to kind of hear a term, take it seriously. And I mean, how many times have we said or heard of reports of handprints and always just wanted to get the dermal ridges? Now we're looking to collect more than the dermal ridges, the actual compounds in the sebum, you know, or if there's differences, the DNA, which is fantastic, because here we go. We got another tool. We've got something that can help us a little bit further.
Well, these
So,
are all puzzle pieces that, you know, if
sure.
they keep calling up dermal ridges, and now, and by the way, Alba Vernix does sound a lot better than white stuff. So anyway,
Yeah.
I put this Western New York. This is my friend Joe from up New York. He had this question earlier. Put it up. He said, "Shelly, what went through your mind the moment you realized, hey, these things are real?"
Oh, well, the moment I realized they were real was when my husband told me, you know, because I believe him, you know, I mean, it's God family, you know, and he's that man, you know, and I was fascinated because as a little girl, I had always watched all the, you know, what was the show it was on, the Patterson Gimlin film, but Leonard Nimoy's
Uh,
Unsolved Mysteries, or I believe it was.
no. There was the Mysterious Monsters, but that wasn't the one he was on. Uh, my gosh, if I wasn't
I
trying to
don't,
think of it.
I know, but once I'd seen that as a little girl, I remember very specifically what was going on in my house at the time, and I don't remember, it's 7, 8 years old, I guess, maybe, yeah, and because I was born in '63, yeah, so
In Search of.
in search of, that's what it was, that's right, and
Yeah, Will
that
Starr and Joe answered it at the same time.
that to me, it was like, oh wow, there's Sasquatch, that's really cool. But when Dawn told me, that's when it hit home for me. But then when I had my encounters, the first one was so, the guys that were there, it was unreal. We just were like, this can't be true. I mean, it's just so much is going on around us, and we were trying to discount it. But then when the rock throwing came in, that's when fear came into my life, and
Mhm.
it was the fear of the unknown. And I, you know, and because I couldn't see outside my tent, so it all played this. I think like it went from wow, that's cool to oh my goodness to oh my gosh. These things are powerful, and I don't think they're out to hurt us, but I don't underestimate anything in the woods.
Oh
And
no, absolutely.
and I take it very seriously. I don't like playing games about all this. There's some things some people do that I think is very dangerous, and so I don't do those. I don't. I'm very, very, very well aware that they're very real, and they're a living, breathing, flesh and blood entity that is the great North American Sasquatch, our national treasure, and I take it so seriously. I mean, it's my life. So, but sorry, got into a little rant.
No, no, that's what we got you on for. And like I said, I'm just tickled to death you came on here.
Oh, well, thanks for having
Uh,
me.
and but no, you, I don't think you saw it, but well, I don't want to jump into that just yet. We was talking about dangers in the woods. And you and I talked about this, and you had a similar encounter yourself. The most dangerous thing I ran into in the woods was three tweakers that drove into my camp, and I thought we're going to become dangerous. But when they've seen that I was armed, they decided to go somewhere else. And you had a similar thing happen to you, but it's even more scary out where you were, I guess. But
Yeah, I've had two times, but this last one was really intense, and it's hard for me to talk about that. I don't know. I mean,
well,
it's
you
okay.
don't have to. You
I
don't have
know
to.
it's okay. I just want people to understand that everything we do in the woods should have purpose. It is for me. Since I'm alone a lot, I do everything exactly purposeful. Like I pack my truck very purposely. Everything's in the same spot all the time, so that if I'm in situations where it's completely dark, I know exactly where everything is without having to have light. And that was kind of one of those situations. And you know, I can only control what I do. You
Mhm.
can't control what these people are doing. And drugs can't stop you. I mean, it was really dangerous. It was really, I mean, I was fine. I was fine. I knew I was going to win. And that person had a choice. But the drugs were doing the talking.
Mhm.
And, it lasted.
Just to be clear, the drugs of the other person, not
Yeah.
you.
No, yes. No, the tweaker was completely out of their mind. And, you know, as well as I do that people have been shot and they don't stop.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it took, it's been, well, it's bound to happen. And in today's world, it's more and more dangerous. And so, just know what your plan is. Don't go in and camp in a spot where it's one way in, one way out. Always park out. Wear a headlamp all the time with your firearm, because you can blind them with that headlamp, just like the officers do. But yeah, I mean, she was either gonna, you know, I was gonna win. That's all that I have to say.
Well,
I was gonna win.
my plan is at the end of the day, I go home in one piece.
Hmm.
That's the
Right.
uh,
That's
when
all I wanted.
when I was in a cleat, which is law enforcement training myself, our instructor says better to be judged by 12 than carried by
That's
6.
what I said. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
that's the thing, and pray to God ever have to use force like that. But I mean, it's a possibility, when you're in the woods. And Sasquatch is the least of my worry about
Hmm.
that. But like you, I don't underestimate that there is the potential. Anything that big, that powerful, that is that stealthy, if it chose to do you harm, I'm not sure you'd have a chance to get a gun up.
I don't think so. I think you would. I think the twitch reflex of these things is so quick that he'd been on top of you before you even knew it,
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so if if I go out, like that with Sasquatch, I'm sure it'd be quick and painless. I don't think you would even know it happened. But yeah, people are dangerous, and just always be prepared. I tell people, when you go out for seasons, I go out in the spring when it's rainy, and I come back in the fall, and I have to pack for all these seasons. So, like I said, everything is very deliberate. Everything is exactly where it's supposed to be all the time. And if it's not, that's when you get in trouble. And when you panic is when you get in trouble. So those are the two things I don't do. I don't panic, and I'm prepared at all times, and I'm very deliberate about everything I do. Everything. It's a job for me.
Yeah, you're very fortunate to be able to put as much time as you do. Like myself, I'm fortunate that there is a hot spot of Bigfoot sightings within just barely an hour's drive from my home.
Mm-hmm.
Because my work, I run a business. I can't go away for weeks at a time like that, but it is easy for me to get away for weekends at a time and go off, there. But to have the freedom that you do to be able to go up in, Pacific Northwest, wherever, that is a rare, I'm a little envious. I will say that.
Well, let me say something that it's not fortunate. I'm very deliberate. I put myself in a position to where I can do this. I don't spend my money on frivolous other things or things that other people spend their money on. Dawn and I made a commitment. This is what I was going to do. Now, if, there's going to come a day I'm not going to be able to do it anymore, for a number of reasons. And so trying to get in, I raised my family. My kids are grown. Our kids are grown. And my kids were like, Dad, what is Mom doing? And he said, she's picking up where she left off before she had you. So, it's all in what you prioritize as far as what's important to you. And this is like a job for me. My husband pays me to do it. And all I want to do is step up the game a little bit with people like me, and help any way I can, to where, because I think Sasquatch deserves the best. And if I can do just a little bit to spread that, it's worth everything for me. It's worth what I would be spending on vacations to the Bahamas, or going out every Friday night to have steaks and beers with our friends, or, buying clothes and things. And I don't do those things. This is what I do. And I save all year long, and my time is devoted to that. And yes, it's nice, I think, but I'm very deliberate in making sure that I get to do what I think is important, because if you don't, then you're just not going to do it. And it's just like getting married. I get told I'm lucky. I'm like, no, I made good decisions. I decided to marry this guy. So
Hey, 37 years, that's an achievement.
well, we put
real.
together a plan when we got married, and it was very, what we would do and what we wouldn't do as a married couple. And we asked that of each other, and I've always kept those rules, and they're not hard. They're simple and just a few. But when your life partner is, your life partner. So, yeah, I married the guy that I knew would be supportive of everything I did. And I support him in every way, in everything he does. And so it's always been that way. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I got a question here from
Sure.
Mopar Bill. He said, Shelly, if you could have one tool to use for life that you don't have, what would it be?
A tool in the field, or just it?
I'm assuming that's what he's, yes, in the field.
Well, let's see. So I have pretty much everything. I have all the thermal cameras, pretty much ground cameras. I've got my inReach, which is super, like, that's the most important tool I have. And then my firearms. I would probably say a thermal drone, only because I haven't gotten it yet. So I think if I could get Sasquatch on the 3 thermal cameras, let's say all at the same time in different directions, the same entity in different directions at the same time, and a thermal, drone footage, that'd be fun to watch everybody fight over that. Fight
Oh
over
yeah.
what it is and what it isn't.
Yeah, if you see me giggle, it's not at you. They're guys over here that know each other that are picking each other in the chat.
It's fine.
It's hilarious.
Well,
But,
I'm so blind I can't see, so don't worry. I'm
well,
not.
it's
All
over
I
the
see is
chat
the
on the
word.
side. It's just people that are friends. They're just ribbing each other and stuff. But yeah, we've got a good crowd in here, right? It's 70 people right now.
Nice.
Yeah, if
Awesome.
anybody has any questions, like I say, I don't want to butt in when she's in a thought there, but when I see a question, I'll pop it up there so we'll get to it.
Well, let me encourage people that I feel like citizen science I just want to speak on that a little bit because that's really my whole, that's how I identify. I don't want anybody to ever think I am, we've got fields of scientists, and I'm not that. I'm not super educated. I went to college a little bit, and it wasn't even in this. It wasn't even in this kind of field, and so. But citizen science for me is, it's more than just Sasquatch. It's actually when you get involved and you start to realize that you're going to learn about everything else besides Sasquatch, it makes you better at your game. And it teaches your mind to start training itself to see the details that you otherwise will overlook. So, like in wildlife tracking, which is a citizen science, and it's needed to help with conservation and poaching because the government cannot afford to hire, more game wardens and more wildlife biologists to count numbers and to help with poaching. They need people like us who become certified through our states. That if I go to the state of Texas and say, hey, there are mountain lions in this region, I've got the tracks, I've casted them or whatever, they're going to take my word because I'm free.
Mm-hmm.
To work for them because I'm volunteering my information. Well, when you start to get people like that in the Sasquatch game who actually are certified, and it gives you a little bit of credibility, doesn't say you're this super educated scientist, but you can add a little more to the game. And then that leads you down this beautiful rabbit hole of learning about wildlife behavior in general, because a
Mm-hmm.
tracker doesn't just look at tracks. That's not it. You're looking at behavior, you're learning morphology, you're starting to see things that are going to open your mind to so much more. And nature journaling is another citizen science. I mean, that's how our first, when people were discovering the Americas, they were drawing and writing down the information. Those things are super important and they're fun, and it gives what we do more value, in my opinion. I mean, I get people reaching out to me from universities asking me to speak on things like that, and that are really interested in the aspect of Sasquatch, but need to look in areas of where they know it's taken a little more seriously, in the sense it's not just a story. And
Mm-hmm.
if I can help somebody who has this great story and say, here, use something like this, and talk about how to video or how to use your thermal imagers in a better way and capture all that kind of evidence that you're already doing, and then you can walk up with some DNA, because I'm going to teach you how to, pull some eDNA. I'm going to teach you how to find hair in the woods. People talk about hair all the time. I'm like, do you know how to find it? I know how to find it. Do you know how to find it? It just takes a
Yeah.
little extra, and it makes it really fun and interesting.
Okay, we got a few questions here. Going to get here's a real serious one by the Squatching Cowboy. Shelly,
Oh,
Whataburger or In-N-Out?
Waterburger. Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
Here's one here said, are either of you going to come to the Boggy Depot camp out the first weekend of November?
Who asked
The
that question?
Boggy, Jody Chisholm.
Oh, okay.
Are you talking about the Boggy? Is that Boggy Depot in Oklahoma, or is there one of those in Texas too?
Yeah,
Boggy Depot I know of is in like Atoka.
it is. That's
Is
the
it?
one he's
Okay.
talking about.
First, Are you going, Shelly?
I didn't plan on it, but that
I,
doesn't mean anything.
yeah, honestly, I didn't know about it.
It's
Nobody's
usually put
invited
on
me.
by
So
it's usually put on by Marvin, I think.
oh, was that Marvin? Okay.
I think
Um,
so.
he might have mentioned that to me, but at a book
Yeah.
signing. But yeah, I don't have plans to go. Let's see. What else we got here? Um, this is Will Star. Will, what is Shelley's favorite Pacific Northwest location, and has she ever been to British Columbia, Canada?
I've been invited to Canada, but they don't let us take our firearms, so no. And some other reason. I mean, I'd love to, but it's not looking like I'll ever go there. My favorite area in the Pacific Northwest will probably be the location I had my encounter at, which is called Bumping Lake. I'll just tell people. It's near. It's not too far from Yakima, that area. Even though that's a very dry area, it's in the Cascades and it's a very, very, very old copper mine camp that turned into a hunting area, and some really wonderful, interesting, significant Sasquatch encounters have happened there throughout the years. So,
Okay. And here's a gentleman named Randy Harrington. I think he's from Oklahoma here, if I remember right. But he said, we just collected a suspected scat at the 400 with the DNA kit like Shelly puts together. That's good. And Joe from Western New York changing his name to martial law Bigfoot hunter. All right. Let's see. Chisholm coming soon. Well, there's Pat from Squatch Talking. There's my buddy David Perkins. I'm telling you, we got 74 in chat now, Shelly, and we've got folks from here in Ada that for whatever reason are too shy to get in chat, but they are texting me on my phone. So, here we got Bigfoot Okinawan. Shelly, do you mail out your DNA kit?
I will. I prefer people buying them at conferences, but I will. I mean, if you really want one, I can.
Okay. I've got his.
They're good for every type of DNA collection, including face prints and handprints, all the envelopes you need. You can pull up to at least 4 wet sample. I mean, the tubes they're called dry transport. So if you were pulling, they look like the COVID tubes. Those.
Okay.
And I tell people pull 4, and it has so that you can send them to different area, different locations. You don't just pull one, and you coat all sides. Your latent hand and face prints, all the masks and gloves, and I suggest double gloving so that if you cross contaminate, you just rip off the outer pair of gloves, and now you're back to sterile. But any kind of DNA, it's very possible to collect in this kit, and you can get 3 people suited up. That way you have the primary, the secondary person who's assisting. The primary is collecting everything, and then the third person needs to be videoing everything from very beginning to very end.
Yeah, the gentleman asked, that's Leon from Bigfoot Okanagan. He's from British Columbia. And
okay, yeah, I'd be happy to. He can just now my kits are I sell them for $60. And you can I take PayPal and Venmo, whatever.
Okay. Oh, my friend Evans Bailey on here, he just jumped in about the Boggy Depot. He said, this is a no-bro camp out at Boggy Depot next weekend. Both of you are always welcome. So thank you, Evans. Oh, by the way, I'm going to see Evans this weekend at Oklahoma City he invited me to be part of at the downtown. If anybody in Oklahoma or whatever is going to be around Oklahoma City, the downtown library in Oklahoma City is having, I think they call it the Peril Fest or something like that. But part of it is going to be Bigfoot, and Evans's group is going to be there putting on a presentation, and they very kindly asked me to come and to speak as well. So I'll be there on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, I believe, is when we're scheduled. If I believe so, Evans. So anyway, so we're both invited to the Boggy Depot deal if we're free. I'm trying to think. I might be. Evans, holler at me about that. I might be able to make it to it. Let's see. 40 outing. Here's let's see here.
Oh yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Kevin Morrison. Do you know Kevin? He said, Shelly, talk about your close friend Bob Gimlin. He just celebrated his 91st birthday.
Right. Yeah. I'm fortunate enough to be friends with Bob, and what an amazing individual. I mean, his life story is so much more than just the Patty film. If you ever get to sit with him by a campfire, and fortunately enough, he comes out to my camp every year and spends time with me, and he is the strongest man I've ever met in my life, and makes everyone, if he is speaking to you, you are the most important person in the room, no matter what. And they're trying to get me to fly up there right now, but I wish I could, but I can't. But I think he's going to be speaking at another conference pretty soon. But
wow,
yeah, he just turned 91 on the 18th, and God bless him. I mean, just one of the sweetest, most wonderful. I mean, look at what he's done for us. Just bringing, I know that he never really talked much about the Patty stuff. And now, I mean, look at it. It's just become this fantastic phenomenon that we can only thank him and Roger for, and like, what's his name was really upset about two dumb cowboys getting the footage of a Sasquatch,
Are you talking about Renee DeHenden?
Yeah, DeHenden, exactly.
And then Renee, I can do a good imitation, but anyway, he's yeah. I tell you what, Renee, he's one of the greats in this as well.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
he was a little cantankerous. But I tell you what, you never had to wonder what he was thinking.
Mm-mm.
He would just, if he thought something was BS, he'd call it.
Exactly.
Not the Patty film, but I'm, like some of the other, which I'm not going to,
I understand
anybody, but some of the old footage that a lot of people think is really the real deal. He would just come out and just lay it out there and just call it what he thought.
Oh yeah, I mean,
and I'd get a kick out of it.
The best impression I've ever heard of him is when Bob does it. It's funny. He's great.
Good grief. We were talking about him the other day. What in the Steenberg. Steenberg does an amazing impression. He does the best impression of Renee that I've ever heard. And
Bob is pretty darn good.
Yeah. Well, I don't know Bob. I'm just talking about people I've talked to personally, and I'd love to meet Bob, but my goodness, I don't. I see myself being able to go up there. Huh?
Well, we've had him come to Texas he was at he's been at a couple of the conferences here in Texas. So maybe we'll get him back, and I mean, it's getting a little harder for him to travel, but just a fantastic human being. And I'm like his, he tells me I'm like his daughter. So, and I feel very fortunate. I don't know, but he loves the ladies. It doesn't matter who you are. He loves everybody. You know, he's everybody's best friend. And I hope you get to meet him, David. I hope everybody does.
I do. This question to me, Connie Bullard says, David, when are you going to go back to the Kiamichis for an overnighter? Probably in reality next spring, because when it's deer season, I pretty much stay out of those areas. I don't want to get anytime I see advertisements on the top of on the side of quick stops, it's advertising beer to deer hunters. I get a little nervous, but no, I'm joking there. But no, but just for safety reasons and not wanting to mess up anybody's hunt. On top of that, when it's rifle season for deer, I'll leave the woods to the hunters pretty much. So generally, after deer season, if the winter is not too bad, I'll probably go out in December. Otherwise, usually in the early spring, like February or March. But depending on, I had a question for you. This is kind of off the. Let's see. David Weathers asked, "What are your views on the ability of Sasquatch to cloak or disappear?"
I think that Sasquatches have a twitch reflex that is so incredible that it makes them seem magic-like, if that makes sense. I mean, when I have done quite a few or taken reports from gentlemen that have seen them up close, and a lot of them tell me their twitch reflex is so incredibly fast that they seem like they're on crack, just. And then listening to people near the Red River talking about them shooting up the side of a mountain so fast. I don't think they need cloaking abilities whatsoever. I think they're so different from anything else we know of a living, breathing entity on this planet that they seem magic-like.
Okay. Horse 454 asks, have you or do you plan on doing any research in northern Michigan?
No, I've not been there. I mean, it's not out of the question because there's some fantastic stuff in northern Michigan. And one of my favorite encounters, one of my buddies out of the Pacific Northwest had his first encounter there. And he didn't believe in Sasquatch at all. He was a kid. He was 15, I think. And he saw one in the morning time, like at 10 o'clock in the morning. And it was eating a fawn. It was ripping the meat. It was laid over his arm here, ripping strips of backstrap off the back of this fawn and eating it. And what I thought was so incredible was he talked about that he could see in the joints where the hair swirled like a calyx, and that the skin was dark and ashy, like gray, and it was black. And it grimaced when it realized he was looking at him, but it wouldn't look at him. It would look around, and it dropped the fawn and turned around and just started ripping these giant ground willows out of the ground or whatever they were behind him, throwing them behind him as he walked off. One of my, his details are way better than mine. I just kind of wanted to squeeze that in there, but fantastic place for some good Sasquatch out. Great calls out of, is it Jim Sherman out of Michigan that has those fantastic calls and such out of there? And then
I'm not sure.
Yeah, some really good audio.
Pat from Squatch Talk, he has a YouTube channel as well. He says Bob Gimlin, his most important role now is being the living witness to that event, and
this is true.
He's right. The last one as far as I know. Let me
That's
see.
Very true. That's a very true.
Yeah, we caught that, Jody. Thank you. Let's see. Yeah, it says David, invite Mr. Gimlin on the podcast. I would love to have him on the podcast sometime.
Well, he doesn't have any social media. I mean, he doesn't have internet or any of that at his home, or he doesn't use it, I don't guess. And he's a flip phone guy, so he doesn't even have text messaging. You literally have to talk to him on the phone.
Okay.
So,
Let me see here. Let me get caught up here, and I'm going to switch gears a little bit here
okay.
to another piece of footage that you showed me, and this is. Don't think I'm going off in the woo or nothing like
No, it's
that.
okay.
Shelly, you showed me some video footage of, for lack of a better word, an orb type thing in the woods up in the Pacific Northwest. There's
Yeah.
this red light, and I'm going to tie that into uh, when we were at the cabin at outside of Honubby by Neshoba. You didn't see this, did you? You were at the
No.
house.
Right.
Okay. So I was walking down towards the woods, and I seen this little ball of light, and I thought at first maybe a reflector on on the gate coming in, and saw it moving. Pete Buffalo nearby, and I got his attention. I said, "Pete, do you see that?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, "What are you seeing?" He pointed right at it. We both seen the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm going to let you share your thoughts on what this might be as well. In my mind, I was like going, wow, it's been a very dry summer. What kind of atmospheric phenomena, static electricity or whatever, is
Sure.
causing that ball of light? So I start walking like to the edge of the woods, and then here coming from, and Pete, excuse me, Pete Buffalo Head was one of the speakers there, and his speaking on the Sasquatch and other things was completely from the Native American spiritual side of it. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting closer to the woods, and he goes, "David, don't follow that into the woods." And I remember I turned around and said, "Pete, you know I'm going to follow it in the woods." I said, "Why
Right.
not?" He said, and here again, both of us seeing the same thing, two different outlooks and perspectives. Me, and
Yeah.
I'm still static electricity, something atmospheric, totally there. Pete said,
Right.
"Don't follow those in the woods. Those are the little people, and
Right.
they will." I said, "Well, why not? What will they do?" He said, "They'll lead you off and get you lost." So regardless of how, I mean, I was tickled to death because I had heard of these things before, but that's the first time I saw one. And with witnesses, and I think Henry, she was a little further back, but I think she actually saw at least one as well. But
But she couldn't see it with thermal imaging, though. Right.
no. So
Yeah.
what would those be? There's no dispute. It wasn't my eyes playing tricks on me. Pete saw it. I saw it. Um, you've got footage of, which is the first really good footage I've seen of that. Uh,
It's crazy.
I mean, what do you think they are?
I
You
don't.
know, is
So
it a
I don't.
spiritual entity, as you know, some people say? Is it an atmospheric phenomenon? All I can tell you is it was there.
Yeah. Well, I know. So the one that I have a video of, I don't own it, so unfortunately I can't. I can sit there and show it people all day long, but I
Mhm.
can't put it online. But when you look at it, looks like plasma. It's a ball of light just rotating and just crazy and shooting off in all these directions. And then what you guys saw, I don't I don't know. Was it similar? Was it just a moving light? What was? I mean,
Are you
what?
asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you. The light that
Oh
you
no!
guys saw.
What me and Pete saw? Of course, it was kind of a greenish white light, not real big, maybe size of a golf ball if I'm estimating. You know,
Yeah.
and there was more than one because the first one I seen kind of ambled off a little, just disappeared, blinked out, and then another one popped up. And Pete was describing them as like shiny, like diamond like thing or whatever. I guess he was
Mhm.
talking about the whitish light too. But
Right.
yeah, it was just the two different perceptions. I'm thinking
I,
phenomenon, and he's thinking, little person or
well,
what or something. Now, Don, I got to answer this. Donald Fuller said, "Still looking to see this phenomenon, and I will chase it down."
yeah.
Donald, I tried to. I could not get close to it. It just disappeared, just blinked out, whatever.
Well,
I wish I
I
could have gotten close,
I think they're
closer.
further away than what we think they are
And
too.
well, I've got a perspective there, Shelly, because it was between me and the edge of the forest by the road. You know where we
Oh.
come into that area through those trees?
Uh huh.
So my estimate is it was within 20 yards of me.
Oh.
because Pete did not go near as close as I did. Pete literally, he stopped probably that far at least behind me, and I crossed over into the woods to see if I could get a closer look at it, but I just couldn't, but
Right. Well, I don't think, I mean, personally, I don't think they're associated with Sasquatch.
well, no, I'm not. I want to be clear. I'm not implying that.
No, I know you're not, but a lot of people do associate that, and I don't think there's a need. I'm just guessing. I mean, for me, what I've seen and what I've seen on camera look like a ball of energy to me. And like you said, a phenomenon. I don't know. I think the earth gives off, I mean, we were in a rock pit and it had a lot of quartz in it, and I could tell there was some kind of energy there, in the sense of it was very dreadful. Like it drug you down. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what those are. And that's one thing I'll always say, either I don't know or I'm not qualified to answer that, because I'm just not. I don't have an opinion on everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm squarely in that camp when it comes to those. I don't know. Now, I saw my friend David Perkins on here earlier. He's the Kiamichi people here, and his mom told me some neat things about their legends and folklore regarding the little people and stuff. So it's in the folklore of all of the native people I know around here. If it's, I mean, I don't know what every tribe's folklore is, but I have people tell me about it. Now, I think there is absolutely nothing wrong with saying, I don't know.
I just don't.
And that's it. I don't. But I can tell you for sure, I did see one.
Yeah.
And Pete saw it and all that. So it wasn't my eyes playing tricks on me. What it is, I'm not going to even pretend,
right.
or pretend to know.
Right.
But I was happy that I got to see it,
Right. And not everything needs an explanation right now. I mean, if you look at, the space program and how we kind of stopped for a long time, it was because science wasn't caught up yet, and we're just not there yet, I mean, I tell everybody, quit trying to, and this doesn't have anything to do with anything in particular, but I always try to start at the basics and work my way through that and see if I can figure anything out. As far as these lights and all kinds of things other than Sasquatch, I really don't have an opinion, because I don't experience a lot of that at all. Or I have some way I can explain it, because I have walked up and I found out what it was. And in the Pacific Northwest, you get a lot of moonlight bouncing off of this really weird looking green moss sometimes, and it looks like it's a glowing orb in the woods, and it's moss. I mean, am I saying that's all everything is? No, it's just, I don't know. I mean, and I think
well, in something, this is not pointing at the orbs, talking about other things. And
yeah.
I solved a mystery here that and I actually did a video on it. There was a mysterious partial skeleton found in Arkansas. First I heard about it was the guitar teacher here at the store actually got to see it and was telling me about it. And I've seen pictures of it, but without perspective on that. And they were saying they'd sent it to to OU and had a person look at it and say, well, it was definitely bipedal, it was definitely carnivorous, it was this. It even made its way into a book on treasure hunting and stuff. So anyway, I did a video with Steve talking about what he saw. And then I thought, okay, because I need to see more. Steve shows up with a picture of it with still some of the flesh on it and a guy. So I did the research and I solved that. It was a white-tailed deer that parts of it were missing. Something had chewed the front snout of it off, which gave it an almost humanoid look in the one skeleton. There was no limbs left on it. But the two things did not make sense to me when I was looking at it. They said, well, it was definitely a biped. I'm like, well, no, that rib cage is a quadruped. because I do know enough about anatomy of that. But anyway, I killed that unicorn, and nobody likes it if you kill a unicorn.
Right. I mean, that's
So,
that's I'm shocked that somebody at the university didn't know. That's crazy because you know the thing about like when you're studying wildlife tracking, you're studying skulls and bones
mhm.
too, and just just every bone has a certain measurement and length and how many teeth are in there and all that matters. And for someone not to be able to pull that, figure that out in a university tells you a whole lot.
I don't know if you can
That's
see that. That's
can't see.
hold on. Somebody just emailed me a picture of a orb.
Oh, I see it kind of the white.
Right
Oh,
there. Can
that's
you
kind of
see that?
cool. Yeah.
And that, yeah, Mark, that's very descriptive. Just I wasn't that close to it. And this gentleman was seeing these things. The live wire actually was seeing these things near his house, and he was having some scary type Sasquatch activity around his house that I investigated, that his kids were seeing them before he was. So, yeah, that's accurate,
Kids.
Mark.
Yeah.
Just I wasn't that close to it. That was close, you know.
Well, I have a friend that saw a green orb in the woods, and he said it was as big as a basketball, and that kind of looks like that. The one you showed me looked like, but it was green. And we were like, "Well, what'd you do? Did you go up to it?" And he goes, "Why would I? It wasn't Sasquatch."
Okay, I gotta stop this right now, Joe. If you're going to come over here making fun of Oklahoma like that, that's just not nice.
There you go. You should have been.
You
The
know,
A&M should have got a hold of that.
hey, when I spoke, the only complaint I had about Jefferson, Shelly, when I was there, is the way it was set up. Is those of us who had tables could not hear the people speaking.
I know.
So I didn't get to do that. But I went in there. Of course, okay, I was not originally supposed to speak at Jefferson. I was just going to go down there and sell books. Lauren Coleman, well-known cryptozoologist, was supposed to speak. He wasn't able to come. They put me in Lauren's spot. So here I am, brand new to Texas, and I'm speaking right after Lyle Blackburn, who's a very well-known author and a great guy, by the way, if you don't know Lyle. And I was in Lauren Coleman's spot. That's how I opened up my talk. I said, well, I'm following Lyle Blackburn, and I'm in a spot supposed to be filled by Lauren Coleman, so no pressure, right? So, but yeah, that's what I said. I said something about anybody in here from Oklahoma, and just very few raised their hand. I said, I guess they didn't want to come down because of the whole OU thing, you know. But
Right.
I can care less about football, so I'm just having fun.
Well, I
This
think the Honobi, because it was right before that.
right.
A lot of those Oklahoma people were there, and then we were at, the Texas two were at the Texas one. I think that's kind of what it is.
Yeah. Well,
So,
this here's my friend David Perkins. I was telling you, he's of Comanche heritage. He said, my family has been seeing glowing orbs around my campsite kind of regular, but I've still never been lucky enough to see them myself. And David, that there at Neshoba, when we were speaking at Honobi, that's the only time I've ever seen anything like that. And he's from down in the southwest part of the state. Shelly, have you ever been down around Mount Scott, down near Lawton? It looks like New Mexico. I mean, it's these
yeah, I've
very.
been in that area, but I haven't been there.
It looks like something from the old Western movies and stuff.
Right.
It's beautiful, beautiful country. But it's totally different than the Kiamichis. Bigfoot Okanagan Leon said the phenomena of orbs are known as earth lights. They're also confused as UFOs. Now, I guess same things like will-o'-the-wisp, ghost lights, jack-o'-lanterns. I mean, it's not an unknown phenomena. Cashew talks about the brown mountain lights in North Carolina. But
And
let
Martha
me see.
lights and all that.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, does anybody have any? We've been on here about an hour and a half. Does anybody have any questions for Shelly? I I don't want to rush. You can talk as long as you want, but I don't want to keep you up later than you want to be either. But does
Oh no, I'm fine.
anybody have any questions for Shelly? Here's Leon here. They come in all sizes and colors caused by the Earth.
That sounds good.
Shelly, do you know Leon that has Bigfoot Okanagan from British Columbia?
I believe maybe I'm not. I don't. We've never met, but maybe
Okay. Yeah, you might check
Facebook
his.
friends.
He's a very analytical individual, very science oriented in his approach to this. So, and
Leon,
Leon Thompson.
maybe. Gosh, you have to forgive me when people give me a different name and their picture isn't on there. That's when I'm just kind of like, because I've met a lot of people.
And I tell you, and my biggest fault, Shelly, is I have a good memory for numbers, but unless I'm around a person a while, I'm very bad at names, and I feel terrible about it. But anyway,
it is what it is. I mean, it isn't like we're spring chickens.
Well, I think a lot of it's just when you work with the public, you see a lot of people, and how many people do you see every day? Say, "Hey, my name's so and so," and you never see them again.
Right. You get 2 minutes or 5 minutes with them, and then they move on, and then you might see them again in another year, or they pop up in your messages saying, "Hey, remember me? I had that Bigfoot sighting." It's like, oh,
What?
I mean,
The Squatch and Cowboy. You've never met Shelly, and you're from Texas. Is he joking, or y'all never really met?
No. Well, this is the deal. I spent so much time I think in Washington State because I'm there almost half the year. I don't meet that many people from Texas. I meet a few.
Well, he was there at the conference in Jefferson. He literally was. He really was the tall guy with the cowboy hat. That he had a little camcorder walking around, a small little Canon camcorder. Oh, we got to know this. Jack Chisholm says, "Tell us a little about your Toyota off-road rig. Looks specifically. How did we not get to that?
That's
You're
Chuck
talking
Norris.
about, yeah, she has a name for it, and it's pretty awesome."
Yeah. Truck Norris is everything. I mean, that's my home. I live in the back and live out of the back of that thing. The tent on top, I'm fixing to have to take off because I've already worn it out. They're not made to live in, but I love it. But I have simply worn it out. It's got a brand new suspension underneath it because I wore that out. But yeah, the back end, I've got it where I can build out a bed, and it just keeps me safe. And I love it. Truck Norris is it. And I have a solar system on top, 2 RV batteries. I'm fixing to switch over to Jackeries. I've got, it's completely surrounded with lights. So if anything pops up, I can hit my lights from the back or the front of the truck. Yeah, it's super important.
Yeah, I've got a. Whoops, we lost. Um,
Did I lose you?
Yep, there she is. But
Sorry,
yeah,
I got a phone call.
on the thumbnail for this episode here, I've got a picture of Shelly in the left, and then on the right part of the screen, her standing outside that truck. So it is I've seen that truck in person, and restrained myself and did not steal it. So anyway, it's an awesome truck.
It's a consistent, I'm consistently, improving it or trying to improve the equipment on it. Like I said, I sleep in the back now, and I've got a bed that trifolds up, and it's level with the windows, so I sleep with all the windows open. So and then I made screens for it, so this way I'm never caught in a position to where if something walks up, I can't just look out. Now, I also have 3 thermals for that. Well, I carry 2. I have 3, but where I can extend them on poles either above my truck and watch on iPads, and it will detect anything moving and jump onto the screen and tell me, hey, there's a heat signature moving, and and I can record. I record my thermals, get set up every night. All my thermals record 6 hours. I've got 6 hours of memory. I can do audio and video, but I just do video. And I'm working on trying to create a 360-degree thermal unit right now. So
I don't even have a thermal unit yet. That's on my list.
Yeah. Well, give me a call. I can send you to who you need to know. And you saw Henry's, right?
Oh yeah.
I got her to get that one. That's the one, and they do almost the same as what mine does. It doesn't record video, but you really don't need that. And but at a significantly cheaper price than my thermals, which are pretty extensive. But hers is a hogster. That's what it's called. Really good quality.
Was that hers that we were looking through out there, or was that yours?
Mine was the black one, the long black one. Hers is the little one. She had hers.
Okay. No, the one I looked through out when we were outside the cabin, that was yours that you had.
Oh, okay.
That was pretty neat. Let me ask you this: have you ever observed what you believe was a Sasquatch through your thermal?
No, but I know a few people that have.
Okay.
I wish. Not yet. Let's just say that. Not yet. It's coming, though.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Squatching Cowboy says the only thermal I can afford are the ones you wear.
That's cute. That's cute. Well, this is the thing. I have learned a lot with my tracking work and through thermal. I have learned, my thermals will pick up in the right conditions, has to be the correct conditions. Chickens walking across the grass, you can see the footprints where the friction has laid down a half a millisecond of friction, creating a footprint on grass. I've been able to, figure out a lot of what is not Sasquatch and what is not Sasquatch related. I've seen things happen in the night with my thermals that I'm 100% sure, because someone thought a Sasquatch touched them in the middle of the night because they were sleeping by the campfire. No, it was a bird, because I picked up this bird that came into my camp every night flying around, looking for insects, this far from the ground. So there is so much you can learn from things like thermals. That's the thing I try to push with people, is like, we're not just looking to see Sasquatch. You're looking to see what isn't. And that's what all these tools and all the things I really push about is, it's not really, you really want Bigfoot to be last, because we guess that all this stuff is related to Sasquatch, or it is Sasquatch. Whereas I'm like, let's get all that out of the way and see how we can prove that's not Sasquatch before we decided it's. And thermal is one of those things that really, if you're good at it and you really work with your different palettes and what they're for, you really start to learn and once again train the mind's eye. Like, think about if you're looking through a thermal camera at, a canid, is that a dog or a coyote at 500 yards? Well, you got to know their movement. That's how you start to see things differently. And that's what I'm trying to do, is train my mind's eye to see things differently, to pull out the details that I've been missing for all these years, and to really give myself muscle memory, because on those thermals, you better be practicing, because if he steps out and then steps back in, you want to have that recorded. And I know someone who just didn't practice enough and missed the recording. That I don't ever want to have to live with that. That would kill me, after spending so much time and money on these pieces of equipment and all the things I'm trying to do. If I'm not great at it, shame on me. Right. And that's why I tell people, practice everything you do. Be deliberate. And then it's going to happen. So.
Just my friend John Hodges said he works at Antlers Motorsports and has a
Mm-hmm.
360 thermal for around $5,000.
A
Randy
360
Harrington,
thermal.
yeah, that's
Never heard of it. Who's it made by?
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know
Maybe the company sharing.
much about thermals at all, except I wish I had one.
Never heard of a 360 thermal, but interesting.
Randy Harrington made a good point here. He said if everyone had a drone, they would see how many times what they thought was a Sasquatch, in fact, was not.
Right.
And I'm sure that in some cases it might take the fun out of some things.
Well, yeah. Is it about you and your encounters? You know, people in general and their encounters, or is it about Sasquatch? Really, at the end
Right.
of the day, for me, it's about Sasquatch. I'm not. I'm getting too old. You know, I want.
Hey, we got to not tell ourselves we're getting old because if we say it enough, we're going to
Yeah, that's true.
it. You know?
I know.
No, but on a serious note, my gosh, this made me think. The other day, one of my customers in here, he's up in his 70s. He said, "Do what you want to do now." He said, "You're younger." He said, "You've got your 20s, you've got your 30s, you've got your 40s, 50s, most cases even your 60s." He said, "But there's a day," he said, "you may not have your 70s, and you sure don't have your 80s to do what you can do now." And I feel very fortunate. I'm in my mid 50s, and I can still do everything I ever did.
Right.
So I hope I can keep it up, longer.
Well, even at that, it's like with me, sure, I get around pretty good. I mean, I don't think I don't act like a 60-year-old. I don't, I jump from the top of my truck. I cut firewood. I do all those things and I'm very self-sufficient. But my thing is my parents are getting older. People around me are getting older. And so I'm going to, I can't be valid, running across country if I've got people at home that need me that aren't,
Right.
aren't in, that are getting older. And so there may be a day where I have to stay home and take care of family. And then how old will I be then? Will I get to go out again after that? Maybe. I don't know.
Hey,
But for me, we just need to do what we can while we can.
yeah. Here's a really good question. This is another friend of mine, Malcolm. He lives
Mm-hmm.
pretty close to here. He says, "Shelly, what's your thoughts on Sasquatches and infrared?" And I know what he's talking about. Like people,
Yeah.
can they see infrared? Like, is that why you don't get as many many on game cameras and stuff like that? Do you believe they can detect that?
I, I, I don't have a problem with game cameras in the field with Sasquatch. I think, I mean, possibly they can, but I really don't think they deter it. I think that there just aren't any Sasquatches around, or there
Yeah,
just
there's
aren't,
always that.
or what if it's the smell? This is the thing. If you're gonna put out equipment, put it out on your camp. Don't go put it in the woods. I think that could be a deterrent because look at everything when it walks up to a camera. A lot of times they smell the camera. What if it's just the smell? I don't know. It could be the infrared, or it could be there's just not Sasquatches in the area. People think there are, but how do you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
that is true.
I
Um,
think I've been wanting to go in and look at doing some work with um, carbon and to deflect what's it called? Not infrared. The magnetic field from animals and ourselves. Everything has it. I forget what it's called now. Birds give it off, and cats give it off.
you talking about
Um,
infrasound?
no, 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 not infrasound. Uh, EMF, EMF.
Okay, you're talking about a
So
frequency then.
okay, so EMF. I have a hex suit that blocks out EMF. It's for hunters. So birds and cats can pick up your EMF. And you put this suit on, and that's when you see the bobcats get real close to the hunter, and he's just sitting out in the middle of nowhere, and the cats still can't see him because they can't detect the EMF. So everything gives off an EMF, right? So you can take carbon paint and carbon fiber and like these hex suits and wrap your electronics in it, and then ground your electronics, and that'll block out the EMF. Now, would that block, let the Sasquatches come in and not notice it? Probably not, but it might get them a little closer. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, I just learned something. I didn't know these things. Wow.
I do a lot of research. I do a lot of
Yeah.
research tools, from
Things I learned from Shelly. EMF. Like, I did
EMF.
not. That's something I've honestly never.
Yeah, look up Hex. HEC, I think, is the name of the company, Hex Suit. And I have one. And I feel like if you could really block the EMF off of your major electronics like game cameras, that you might get them a little closer. I don't know.
This you asked about the 360
Mm-hmm.
thing. John
Yeah,
answered. He said the 360 we sell spins around on top of a side by side.
right. But oh, is he just talking about a unit, or a thermal camera in general? Because I'll have to look that up if it's thermal. I've never heard of one,
Yeah,
or who makes it.
Yeah, I'm
I'd
not
be
sure on that.
interested in seeing
But
that.
apparently, it's they sell it where he works.
Well, I know where he works, so I'll have to come by there and see him.
Yeah. So
I need a what I'd like to get is a side by side, a 6-seater. I'm trying to convince Dawn on that so I can start.
hey, here you go. What Cashew, the moderator here, she is so good at finding things on the spot.
There you go.
And she,
Yep, that's it.
I mean, you
That's it.
literally, I have witnessed. You can think about something, and Cashew will figure it out and put a link up there.
Mm-hmm.
She has superpowers when it comes to this stuff. So.
Yeah, they have some videos on there. Go watch. And but yeah, I was thinking, if you put yourself in a hex suit, put your equipment in a hex suit, you know, maybe you could get something a little better. I don't know. Maybe we could. But I tell you the thing though, David, that after people start buying a lot of stuff and getting into a lot of different things, it becomes too much. So what I try to do is be really good at only a couple of things and practice them continuously, because I'm constantly trying to lighten my load because I carry so much stuff, and but I do carry the hex suit with me. I just haven't implemented it that much because I feel like I just don't focus on game cams that much for Sasquatch. I bait game cameras for the other wildlife to see what's in the area, which I've gotten really good at that. I know how to get almost anything into my camp and capture that. So, but
John says if you show up to where he works, he said, it is a camera. Ask for John.
Okay.
You go there. Saying I've went, me and John, we did a camping trip down there on the Little River here the year before last in an area where him and his wife had an encounter.
Oh, nice.
There. So, but anyway,
cool.
Well, it is going on nearly 2 hours now,
Okay.
and I've got about a 45-minute drive home from here myself.
Oh my goodness!
So, anyway, Shelly, thank you very much for coming on here. This was a blast, and thanks everybody in chat. Everybody, we had at one time a little over 70 people, and that's not counting the people from Ada who were texting me instead of taking part in the chat. So. Don't have anybody lined up for next week, but I'll do my best to get a hold of somebody. If not, it'll mean I've just got something else going on. But anyway, thanks everybody for participating in the chat and all your questions and all that. And Shelly, thanks again for
Thank you.
On. And you guys have a great night.
You too. Thank you, David.
You bet. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, you still there?